Hi, welcome to the Global Professionals in Portugal show. This is a show where I help founders, owners, team members, contractors, and others who are living in Portugal grow, connect, and thrive by highlighting their processes, successes, and lessons learned. Today's guest is Amir Ghannad, who is the founder and president of the Ghannad Group. They have worked with high-profile clients such as Campbell's, Mastercard, Conagra, Revlon, and more. It's a family-run leadership development consultancy based in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. Their whole family lives here in Portugal, and they've lived here for almost 2 years, and the business has been around for more than 8. So Amir's going to share his lessons learned and some of his story, which is amazing. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure, Cordelia. Thanks for having me.
So first of all, did I say your name right? Is it Ghannad?
You said it perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. So can you tell me a little bit about just your story of starting your business and how did that influence your decision to move, or were they kind of just totally separate?
Yeah, so I can give you the short version of a long story. So I spent 31 years in manufacturing and supply chain leadership roles in different parts of the world. And I was always writing these little notes. So even though I had, a variety of jobs in supply chain and manufacturing, my passion was always in leadership development and creating cultures where people thrive and so on and so forth. So I was always writing these notes and all of this. And in 2015, my daughter had it with me. She got on my case and she said, look, you know what? You're always talking about this book you're going to write somewhere, sometime, and we are going to go ahead and publish this. So she took over the project and enlisted the help of her brother and other resources, and we published the book, The Transformative Leader, in 2015. Then shortly thereafter, she started basically pursuing her goal of us starting a business together, which eventually became my goal. So a few months later, I quit my job basically after 31 years in manufacturing leadership roles and things like that. And we started the Ghannad Group back in 2016. And and since then we've been doing workshops, consulting, coaching, a variety of different services, all focused on basically guiding leaders in creating extraordinary cultures that deliver breakthrough results and unprecedented fulfillment. That is what we do. And during the pandemic, we transformed every one of our programs, every service that we provided into a virtual kind of setting. And we were very successful during the pandemic. We had a couple of months where things were being kind of converted from in-person to virtual. But since then, basically, our business took off and did even better than it was doing before. So we were convinced at that point that we could do this work from anywhere in the world. And we started pursuing our dream of sort of going somewhere else again. We had lived in Thailand, we lived in Germany. So we wanted to experience living somewhere else again. And so Portugal showed up on the radar and did a bunch of research. We'd never been here. We sold our house, downsized, bought another home in Atlanta. That's kind of our home base right now. And sold a whole bunch of our stuff and all of that, and came over here sight unseen. And as of last July, actually, just call it about a year or so, or 7 or 8 months after we got here, in-person events began to kind of show up on the radar again. So I've been essentially just going to the US every couple of months for 10 to 14 days. Visiting 4 or 5 clients, and then doing virtual work in between. So that's the story.
So you basically sort of transitioned your business model pre-move so that it would work kind of seamlessly wherever you were based.
Yeah, it basically, we had aspirations of at some point doing that, but the pandemic sort of accelerated that for us and gave us the flexibility to work from anywhere. Yeah.
So how did even though you had done all that work before you moved and then you moved, Did you find that moving changed anything about how you operated your business?
Well, it wasn't that, we were forced to kind of change some things, but we made some choices, honestly. When we
Hmm.
came to Portugal, for instance, I had been publishing a weekly podcast, and for quite a period of time, actually 2 episodes per week.
Wow, that's a
And
lot.
yeah, I mean, we were people were beating our door down to be a guest on our. I mean, some
Hmm.
really great people. So we were just saying yes, and we were publishing this. But about a year and a half ago, I decided that I was just going to pause the podcast,
Hmm.
and so we did that. And my presence on LinkedIn, I kind of pulled it back a little bit, simply because we just wanted to kind of pare down sort of the level of activity. Not
Hmm.
necessarily that I wanted to retire. I don't foresee myself retiring. I have rewired. I don't plan to retire.
Oh, I love that. You
Yeah,
rewired instead of
yeah. I
retiring.
stole that from
Okay.
somebody else, but I love the term, and I have rewired, and I love, love, love what I do. So, but I didn't want to be so busy all the time and all that. I wanted to enjoy life as well, outside of my work. So yeah, we kind of pared things down a little bit. And of course, being here in a different time zone, things changed as well. But that I
Mhm.
found to be actually a really great thing, because until like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I don't have any client engagements.
Mhm.
So we get to enjoy life and go have coffee with friends or go for walks and this and that. And occasionally, I'm doing some work in preparation for my meetings in the afternoon. And then in the afternoon, I do some work. And so it all worked out for us.
So, you at this point in your business have pretty much moved to like 100% word of mouth and referral, it sounds like, in terms of your
Yeah.
lead gen.
Yeah, I mean, we actually, honestly, we have never done any advertising. Our business took off in the second year that we were in business. We were just like, we skyrocketed just based on the um, word of mouth. People that I used to work with who
Right.
found out I've left, brought us a lot of business. So we've continued on that, and we get literally 100% of our business based on word of mouth or repeat business.
Yeah, our business is a lot like that too. And I think it's a real testament to building that, those years of good quality work and ethical business practices and just being somebody that people know they can count on so that, you know, there's no amount of advertising that can replace just like boots on the ground, hard work for years of relationship building, I think.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I often have people come to me to get some tips on how to grow our business, and I always tell them, I say, I'm really not good at that, so I have no idea how you advertise and how you do this and that. So yeah, we have been very blessed to get all of our business that way. Yeah,
Just work hard for 30 years and you too can do this, right?
that's right. That's right. Oh, you can be an overnight success 30
And you
years
can
from
be an overnight success too. I love that.
now. That's right.
Now, so you have been an immigrant before. This is
Yes.
not your first time that you have relocated and
Correct.
been in a new country. So, what are some of the similarities to your previous immigration experiences, and what would you say are some of the differences in this particular time in your life?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, just for perspective, this is the fifth country that I've lived in. Grew up in Iran. I went to the States when I was 16 years old on my own. I didn't know anybody. I barely knew the language. I had had a few years of English, but basically couldn't carry on a
Mhm.
conversation to save my life. So I literally didn't know the language for all intents
Right.
and purposes, and didn't have any resources. Very
Mm.
young. So that was like my first experience. I would say the other experiences that I've had was as an expat. I mean, the company Procter and Gamble took care of us and that sort of thing, and so we kind of learned the language to some extent and all of this. But it wasn't like we were. This experience here for me is like a true like immigration sort of experience, in that we were on our own. We just had to figure everything out. How it was different from my first one, I would say, is that for me, it was the first time. It was just basically I was thrown into
Mhm.
a situation, and it was sink or swim, and I had to survive. Had very few resources, and literally had to, master the language or whatnot very quickly, because nobody spoke Farsi around me, and I had to learn their language, and didn't have a whole lot of resources and stuff like that. This time around, of course, I have to say, we're very blessed in that we have the resources and the means to really make sure that we have a comfortable life and secure the right kind of support and so on and so forth. So these two are experiences that I've had are very different in a sense. I think what's similar is that, and what I've learned in all of my experiences moving to different countries, is that if you leave yourself open to kind of seeing the positive things, and not necessarily being annoyed with all those things that are different, and that sort of thing, then you have a positive experience. Then you
Right.
draw to yourself and you attract to yourself people who want to help you, and things like that. So I've tried to do that in every country I've lived in. Really did my very best to learn the culture and the language in Thailand. Picked up enough to be able to, communicate and help people understand that I value the nuances of their culture. And so we're trying to do the same thing here.
Yeah, I'm working on my Portuguese right now, so it's definitely challenging, but I think it's important to not just live in a bubble if you can do that. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've been able to do everything: buy two cars, buy a house, rent apartments, do everything without knowing any Portuguese. So it is
yeah.
possible to do it here. But I think we end up kind of living in a bubble
Mhm.
wherever we're not really connecting with people. So I'm in Portuguese classes myself as well right now, and yeah, it's not easy, but we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah. So, I think it's one of the things that surprised me a little bit is, I think about now, I didn't have an immigration story myself. I was born in the US and have lived there my whole life. But, my family immigrated from Ukraine several generations ago. And, they came with, like you, with nothing but the shirt on their back. And it was sink or swim.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I thought this was going to be a little bit easier. Like there were things that were challenging. And I was like, you know, but I always go back to that. I'm like, I always have three squares. We have a safe, wonderful place to live. We have a great community, but it still is hard. Like there's still moments when you're just a stranger in a strange land. And at least
Yes.
for me, and it's like, it feels challenging. So
Yeah.
have you had moments like that too?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, this is going to sound really strange, but we've been here almost 2 years, and my wife and I were talking about the other day, because we have always, whenever we've moved, have
Mhm.
experienced those moments of culture shock, if you will,
Right.
like what did we do to ourselves and all that. And honestly, we are surprised that we have not yet had that, like,
Okay.
the experience of, like, what did we do to ourselves. uh, that said, yeah, there have been times where we're like, okay, somebody promised to bring, deliver something by today, but we don't hear from them and things like that, and we've had to kind of manage the emotions of the moments, like, wait a minute, we can't be all uptight and all that.
Right.
It'll all going to work out. So we've
Right.
had to kind of micro experiences, if you will. And I'm pretty sure that at some point we are going to have the the full blown experience of culture shock, because it just happens. It's part of the journey, and you got to
Right.
be ready for it. And when it happens, don't panic. Just kind of deal with it and know that that too shall pass. But we have not yet sort of experienced the full blown experience of culture shock yet.
So now are you working on kind of building your Portuguese or European client base at all? Or are you just kind of sticking with your US word of mouth referral base?
Yeah, so we have actually, I've been a member of a networking group here
Mhm.
that was established about a year ago in Braga. The lady who lives in our village here started this, and we've been working together, collaborating to sort of grow it. And so as a part of that, yeah, we are basically getting to know more about each other's businesses and things like that. But I have to say that the business that has come my way in Europe has actually come my way the U.S. So word of
Okay.
mouth, and so I've spoken in France and Belgium and Dublin, in
Cool.
yeah, a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago, in Ireland. So, and so all of that business has been from people that I've worked with before. But yeah, I think slowly but surely we're beginning to sort of create more, create a bigger network here. And I've spoken in Europe for years and years, different stages in various countries in Europe, way before we decided to move here as well. So I have a lot of connections. I haven't necessarily, again, been actively pursuing like we're going to grow our business. We're just kind of letting it happen organically. But I'm pretty sure that we're going to do more business in Europe over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, one of the questions that I see a lot, which is funny, is do they have internet in Portugal and things like that? And I mean, I know
Yeah.
we've certainly found it seems like the waiting for the cable guy is a universal experience. Having said that, we have great internet here, and
Yeah.
the technology has been seamless. Has that been your experience with your
It
business and
has.
home
I
there?
mean, we've had fiber,
Hmm.
internet at the apartments that we've stayed at. And 5 months ago, we bought a home, and it's not in a major city. We're like 15 minutes north of Braga. It's in a smaller kind of village, if you will. But yeah, we have had really great service in that sense. We've been very, very fortunate, and yeah, the speeds are good, and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you work entirely from home. Did you do that before you moved too? That was you always had a home office?
Yeah, yeah. We never really, when we started our business, we never like rented an office space or anything. We had a fairly large home, and we had several spaces where I had a studio in the basement where I was
Hmm.
doing all my videos and everything, and the podcast recording and all of that. Then we had a couple of offices within the home, and so we always worked from home, and we're doing the same thing here. Although I know others whose situation is a bit different. They have little kids at home or may not have enough space. In which case, I think there are plenty of opportunities available to kind of sign up for these co-working spaces and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, so we downsized.
Mhm.
So we used to have two offices in our house in the US, but here, as you can see, I'm in the living room. so, um, so we do rent office space here, but it's very reasonable, and we have a fantastic community that we're part of.
Nice.
So, and we're also not in like a big city. We're in a small town in
Yes.
Portugal. And so and we have a friend who's even in a smaller town and they have a co-working space. So I think, Portugal's really, I don't know, there's a lot of, it's very easy to find a working space if you want
Yes.
one, whether it's at home or out somewhere. There's a lot of opportunities for that, I think.
That's correct. Yeah. Exactly.
Um, So would you say that like living in Portugal has changed your approach to success and kind of how you want things to be, or has it remained the same?
No, I think we have definitely evolved, if you will. But I have been on my own since I was 16 years old, and I was always kind of pursuing some kind of goal. Had to have a plan A, B, C, D, and E, and so here, I don't know if it's just Portugal, but or the stage of life that I'm in, but we're kind of relaxed, and we're like, look, you know what? We don't have to run to get somewhere or
Mhm.
whatever. We just basically are doing what we need to do, and I call it sort of commitment without attachment. So if
Mm.
somebody, for example, is interested in utilizing our services, yeah, we're committed to serving our clients, but we're not attached that like it
Right.
has to happen and it has to
Right.
happen this way. And so I would say we're a bit more relaxed. The thing that I've learned in Portugal as well is that I think sometimes it can be annoying, if you will, that you go to the store, but oh geez, now they're getting ready to close from 3 to 7 o'clock or whatever, or from or the restaurants close from 3 to 7, or the store
Mhm.
closes from I don't know 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, or whatever. But it's they got their priorities straight. Like they're going to get their
Mhm.
rest, they're going to spend some time with the family, and I think the rest of us can learn something from that, right? So in a sense, we're trying to sort of also adjust to this idea that everything doesn't always have to be go 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 go, right? And
Mhm.
so in that sense, yeah, it has helped us, I think.
Yeah, we do live near some larger stores, but even, they close at like 9:30 at night, I think. And
Yeah,
there was one night where I was like, oh, it was like 10:30. I'm like, I need to run out to the store and get this, whatever it was. And I was like, you know what? I really don't need that thing
yeah,
tonight. I
yeah.
just want it. And so I'm fine. Everything's fine. It wasn't not really an emergency and I didn't need to run out to the store. And um,
Yeah, I mean, I think you adjust. I mean, there are different things that are different everywhere. When we first moved to Germany, for instance, Sunday is quiet
mhm,
time, and certain hours of the day are quiet time. You can't do
mhm,
any work, you can't make noise, you can't, and the stores are all closed, and so essentially on Sundays, we were forced to have family time. It's like, what do you do with yourself? You can't go shopping, you can't cut the
right.
grass, you can't do anything, so you just go for walks. And after a while, it was like, wow, this is so amazing. And unfortunately, even though we promised ourselves that we were going to just maintain that tradition when we went back to the States, after a couple of months, we got immersed back into that lifestyle. And so, in a sense, I'm looking for those ways that the ways in which the
Mhm.
Portuguese do life a little bit differently that I would prefer to adopt, if you will.
Yeah, I noticed that with rare exception, if I send somebody an email or a text message who's Portuguese, like on a Saturday afternoon, they just don't get back to me until Monday. And sometimes they forget about it because it got buried right over the weekend. So
Right.
I've actually gotten the habit of scheduling my emails to go out on Monday. So even if I have a thing that I think, whatever, because I work on the weekends sometimes, I'm like, all right, I'm not even going to send this out until Monday.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to know, like, it's just the weekend, and that is
Yeah.
different. If you send people in the States, work colleagues or whatever, something at, like, Saturday at 11, they'll be like, "Oh, that she's working late on Saturday," but here, like, nobody values that. They're just like, "Oh, whatever, I'll respond on Monday."
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lesson about that, like even before we moved here, because there was this agent that we were working with to
Mhm.
rent our apartment. And at one point, she sent me an email like on Friday or something. And I didn't get to it until Saturday. And so I sent a message back. I figured, she'll open it whenever she's ready to read her email. And I wasn't insisting that she has to
Right,
return reply to me. But she sent me a message back on Monday uh, saying something like, "Yeah, here in Portugal we don't work on the weekends." So she wanted to make sure that
right,
I understood that she wasn't going to reply to me, and I'm like, "Look, I'm fine." And
right.
so I do the same. I schedule these emails whenever I can, but I also am really paying close attention
Mhm,
to like holidays. Like
mhm,
today, as we're
mhm,
talking, is a religious holiday, at least where we're at. And
mhm.
it's like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to send anybody any messages. I'm not going to send people messages early in the morning.
Yeah,
And there are other nuances. I don't profess to be an expert. I've got a lot to learn. But one of the things that I've learned is that if you send somebody an email to ask a question, if they don't have a favorable answer yet, they're not going to say, "Hey, I don't have the answer. I'll get back to you on such and such." They're going to wait until they have an answer for you. So if you
that's
hear
yeah,
back, it doesn't mean they're ignoring you. It just means they don't have the answer, the right answer for you. So it's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, I'm going to bug them because it's on their radar, but they will get back to me when they have the answer. So.
Yeah, that's a good one. What are some other like cultural differences that you've noticed in terms of how it affects your business or just life in general since you've
Yeah, I
been
mean,
here?
I think in our business, because we haven't really integrated our business here, we're not doing a lot of business with Portuguese. I don't really have a whole lot of tips or anything like that. But as far as the um, just social interactions and things like that, we have a few Portuguese friends who are just so amazing and so kind to us,
Mhm.
and I've really learned that they don't necessarily operate on the basis of kind of just being efficient with each other. Like if
Mhm.
we uh, the people that we bought our house from, for instance, we made a few visits, and every time we came, it was for a particular purpose. We're coming to look at this, or we're coming to get answers to this or that. But they're such amazing people, and they've become such great friends of
Yeah.
ours, and been so kind to us. And I noticed that every time we came over, their expectation was that yeah, we're coming over and we're not only going to do that thing that we came to
Right.
do, but we're going to sit down, have a cup of coffee. They would have pastries and things like that. The first time we came, we just basically didn't want to bother them. It wasn't that
Right.
we didn't spend time with them, but we were like, no, 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 we're just going to do this, and we left. And then afterwards, I felt kind of bad about that. I was like, this is the norm. So the next time we came in, they said, "Hey, would you like to come in?" Like, yeah, sure, why not? And we came in, and next thing I know, they're showing us their photo albums, and we're having coffee, and we had a great time. And so I think being efficient with personal relationships or business relationships, for that matter,
Mhm.
is not a thing here. I think it's more about effectiveness. It's about the depth of the relationship, as opposed to just kind of getting the job done.
Yeah,
That's what.
I would agree with that. And I think also like I heard I this is a total myth and I don't know if you heard this, but I've heard that people here like I think there's a perception because people don't work on weekends that they don't work hard here, but I
Yeah.
I have found that to absolutely not be true at all. The Portuguese people that I know and that I've seen and our friends and then just people like in businesses, they're very very hardworking.
Yes.
And they will go, and yes, they'll have coffee and they'll sit and talk to you, but also they'll go the extra mile and make sure that you're comfortable. And there is that feeling like, oh, I don't want to put you out. I don't want to be a bother, but they just want the whole thing to be a good experience if possible. And
Yeah.
um, that's different, I would say. That's a different thing culturally.
Yeah, and I think it just depends on how you judge people and their culture. Again, having had experience with several different
Yeah,
cultures, if you kind of look through your lens and say, "Oh, see, these people are taking like 2 hours off in the middle of the day. They must be lazy." Well, you know what? That's not an indication of laziness. Now, I'm
right,
sure there are some lazy people in Portugal, just like there are in the U.S. or anywhere
right.
else. Bottom line is that anytime, uh, at least in our experience so far, uh, you know, anytime we've asked someone for something, whatever, even through the language barrier or whatever, they've gone
Mhm.
out of their way. Now, sometimes they're not, again, as efficient, but because systems are not set up exactly the way we're used to it, and sometimes things require rework and things like that. I get that. But I wouldn't attribute that to like people being lazy. That's
Yeah, I
not been
agree.
our experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're better at setting boundaries with their life. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. And
if I call
nothing wrong
somebody,
with that. I think that's really great.
yeah, if I call somebody by like at 2 and they're on their lunch break, they just don't answer the phone. And I'm like, I need to get better at that, at like not being like, oh my God, it's a client. Let me, put my food down and pick up the phone. Like
Yeah.
it's just not nobody's dying, nobody's on fire. We don't deal with like that kind of business. So we're fine. Everybody's fine.
Yeah, I guess you mentioned lunch. I think the thing something else I learned the other day that I should have known better, but we were trying to schedule a meeting with this kind of
Mhm.
networking meeting that we were having, and there's three of us, and one of us, the sort of the steering committee, if you will, is Portuguese, And so she asked, she said, okay, I can meet on this day, but can we do it after lunch? So I sent a message saying, sure, I'm available at 1 o'clock. And she returned the message saying, that's lunchtime. So I was like, oh, yeah, I was thinking, okay, lunchtime is sometime between 11:30 and 1 o'clock, but then you should be done with lunch. But that's not the case here. So, sort of 1 to 3, if you will, is still lunchtime. So I still have to, I'm sure I have a long way to go to kind of be more sensitive to just changing my framework of how things work here.
Yeah, I'm trying. I made a conscious effort. We've been here much shorter than you have to when we got over jet lag to adjust my meal times to as close as I can. But it's hard. Like at 1:30, I'm like ready to eat.
Yeah.
Right. and, um, and
Yeah.
we try to have dinner at not before 7 at night, which is even really early by Portuguese standards, but at least it's dinner time, right? Like 5:30
Yeah.
is just not dinner time, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
but because I have a child in school, part of the driver for that for me was like, he's going to be in school and he doesn't get lunch until later. So we need to have our family meal so that he's not like inappropriately hungry and like not able to focus in class and stuff like that. But
Right.
it is learning meal times in different cultures is always like an adventure when you're like, why isn't anything open at lunch? And it's,
Right.
every culture has different meal times. It seems like when it's their lunchtime. So
That's right.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit, like you have a family business now, how has that worked with your move? And I know you guys have kind of spread out around Portugal. Can you share a little bit about how the family dynamic has worked?
Yeah, so fortunately for us, both of our kids decided shortly after we applied for our visa that they wanted to move here as well. So our daughter lives in Lisbon right now, and our son lives in Braga, 15 minutes from us. And so because we're doing our work remotely anyway, nothing has really changed. I mean, from
Mhm.
time to time we get together and have our meetings, but it hasn't necessarily changed because we've moved here. And so we're all still kind of fulfilling our roles and things like that. And my daughter has sort of spun off a part of a business that she's running now, where she is making websites and doing branding and things like that. The very things that she did for us to sort of help our business catapult in the first year to like really really great levels of revenue and network and size of our network and so on and so forth. And so she's doing that now as well, aside from the work that we do at the Ghannad Group. So yeah, things have worked out very well for us. We
Well,
each bring something different to the party, and but it works out.
that's awesome. So, do you have any other strategies to share with people who may be considering either moving here with their business or kind of figuring out how to manage their life once they're here?
The one thing that I have to say is still something that I'm still working through is how to really structure the business from standpoint of, is it a US based one, is it a Portuguese
Right.
based one, and things like that, how to deal with taxes and all of this kind of stuff. We have accountants and all of those folks who are working through it, but that's something that I would say you can't start working on that too early in
Yeah.
the process when you decide to move over here. But the other thing is that if somebody is coming here and they are uh, assuming that they are going to be able to get some business locally and things like that, just kind of do your research to make sure that that's actually the case. Because I think sometimes, we certainly enjoy service goods and services at kind of a lower rate at times than what we're used to in the U.S. I think that is probably the case as well for some of the people who are offering services who are making a lot of money in the US. If you're coming here, are you going to be able to make the same amount of money or not? Kind of do a bit of research to see what you can do if you're planning to serve the local community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pricing structure for services is definitely different here than
Yes.
even in other places in Europe. So
Yes.
now the other thing you mentioned that I was hoping you could illuminate a little bit is you talked about this networking group that you're in. Because I think another thing to do that to me this is important, and I did this in the States too, is to get out and talk to other people in business. And that's part of why I'm starting this podcast is to help us all connect with each other. How have you reached out and connected with other business people here?
Well, I mean, for me, there was a need after we had been here about a year or so in Portugal to kind of have a different conversation than how did your self-appointment go and what do
Right.
you do to exchange your driver's license and that sort of thing. I mean, you'd have to do that to get by and make things happen. But I had a need to sort of satisfy that part of me that wanted to engage in other conversations. Right around that time, I learned about this network, Braga Network group that was established, and I started attending and then later became more involved in that sort of thing. And so that's been a really good one where we meet on a monthly basis. We have a
Right.
Facebook group, and we bring a keynote speaker every time. And we just had the head of the Braga Chamber of Commerce deliver a talk to us this last week. Very very enlightening and that sort of thing. That's been kind of our platform, if you will, the place that I go to meet with other like-minded people. There are some people who are doing basically the same work that I'm doing, and so we've become really great friends. And we've had lunch, we've had dinner, we've talked about sort of how we're doing things. And I've met a lot of people who are doing something completely different, but it's intriguing to really learn about what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's great. And we, I just, I tried to start a group here because I didn't find one. And then as soon as I did that, somebody told me, oh, so and so's already doing that. And so I'm like, okay, great. Let me go join their group. I'm not really
Yeah,
all about me. But
right.
I think that it is so good to connect with other people. And have you connected with, it sounds like, because you said the steering committee for your group is you have Portuguese people in the group as well. It's not just like
Yeah,
ex-
yeah. I mean, our network group is not for foreigners.
yeah.
It's an English speaking
Yeah.
networking group, but we have quite a few Portuguese members. Um, many of which have lived abroad for several years, some of
Mhm.
which have not. They've always been living here. But basically, anybody can join as long as they speak English. So we've got people from all over the world, many countries, including several Portuguese nationals. Yes.
Yeah, that's excellent. I think that's also what I've been trying to focus on is English speaking. I feel pretty lucky to have that be my main language because a lot of people speak English. It is way easier for me than it is for a lot of people, and I'm very grateful for that. But
Yes.
I work hard to be inclusive in everything I do, and not every group that you'll join when you're anywhere really is like that. So I hope people will go out of their way to
Yeah.
be inclusive of all different kinds of business people and people.
Yeah.
Well, this is so great. Thank you so much. Check out Amir's website is going to be in the comments or description, depending on where you're watching this video. And he's got some great free resources on his website, as well as his book, which I'm just about to start. I'm excited to read it,
Mhm.
and some really good videos. And we please reach out. I think that we're all stronger the more we help each other grow. So that's what I'm all about. So thank you so much for being on the show today, Amir.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.